bring in Chris Mannix here. We got a lot of NBA stuff happening, but it's happening off the floor here. Let me start with the Nets with Kyrie Irving. And let's assume that he continues this stance. He's not getting vaccinated. What's going to happen here? Is he tradable, Chris?
He is largely untradeable, I would say. I don't think anybody is completely untradeable, but the teams I talk to around the league about Kyrie's trade value are essentially operating under the assumption that if you trade for him, there's a decent chance he'll just retire and decide he doesn't want to play anymore. As a player, there are lots of teams that would love to get their hands on him. He has a relatively reasonable contract with only 1 year left on it. He can opt out after next season. But the off-the-court stuff and the uncertainty surrounding what he wants, that makes him very, very difficult to trade.
What is this costing him financially, or what could it cost him?
Well, my understanding is that I don't know what if anything, the Nets are dinging him for missed practices this week. I don't know if they're doing anything. They don't have – he's not breaking their rule. He's breaking the city ordinance or the executive order, whatever you want to call it. So I don't know if they're dinging him anything. But my understanding is that if he misses, I believe it's Friday's preseason game in Brooklyn, it's around $380,000 and will be $380,000 every time he misses a game. And the NBA has been very clear. If players miss games because of these city ordinances, they are going to get fined. They will not be paid, effectively game checks as a result of it. That is, in his own words, exactly why Andrew Wiggins decided to get vaccinated this week. He didn't want to lose all that money. So if Kyrie decides to sit out, the big ding comes when that first game happens on Friday.
And if he can't play these home games, he also can't play, although it'd be one trip to San Francisco, he can't play. He's not going to play in the games against the Knicks because that would have the same ordinance implemented.
It's not applicable, I don't think, in San Francisco. I think there's an exemption for road players coming in. So that game, I believe, he could play in, but he could not play in Madison Square Garden under these current rules. Look, the Nets, they have been just hoping, and I think it's basically crossing their fingers that Kyrie would come around to the vaccine. That's why they have done everything possible, going back to Sean Marks' media availability about 3 weeks ago, to diffuse this situation. They have been hoping that the threat of losing money, which is not the Nets saying will take away money, it's the NBA and the city, and the presence of Kevin Durant, his close friend, James Harden, a fellow superstar, would convince Kyrie to get the vaccine. To this point, and I've checked in with Nets people almost every day trying to get a grasp of this. To this point, that hasn't happened. And as ESPN reported last night, and they're right, the optimism is kind of waning here that Kyrie is going to get vaccinated by Friday. And that puts the Nets in a very weird situation because not only, Dan, can Kyrie not play in these games, he clearly can't practice. And Steve Nash said yesterday he has no intention of, moving the Nets practices back to Jersey or wherever they used to practice near the Meadowlands. They have a state-of-the-art facility in Brooklyn, this built a few years ago. They're not doing that for Kyrie Irving. So this presents really, we use kind of phrases like this a lot, but an unprecedented situation evolving between Kyrie Irving and the Nets.
Look, if he feels this strongly about it and doesn't want to play and, he's going to retire and he wants to sit out the season, then fine. I understand it if he feels strongly about it. I just don't want this to be notice me, and I'm quirky, I'm interesting, and, hey, all right, I'm going to get the vaccine. It feels like that's where we're headed with Kyrie. As far as Ben Simmons, Ben is just sitting there, has his trade demand, and all of a sudden he looks up and goes, wait a minute, I'm losing how much money? What kind of reaction is going on around the league with Ben Simmons?
Well, the question team executives say to me isn't the Sixers' resolve they're wondering about right now, because the Sixers have not moved off their position that to obtain Ben Simmons, you've got to give up a lot. You've got to give us either a player, the equivalent of Ben Simmons, or multiple players that would add up to the value of Ben Simmons. That has not changed over the last couple of weeks as this, the sit-out by Ben Simmons has happened. And the Sixers' position, and I get it, is that there's a lot of volatility at the top of the NBA right now. I mean, we don't know how Portland's season is going to start and what the Blazers' mindset might be in December about Damian Lillard and or C.J. McCollum. We also don't know if the Wizards come out of the gate slow. With Bradley Beal able to opt out at the end of the season, will they decide now is the time to deal Beal? So it doesn't make any sense for Philadelphia to deal Simmons right now. The Simmons side, though, they've been told expressly that these checks, they ain't getting that money back. That's not something like a team that trades for him can back pay him. This is gone. The money he lost in that Toronto game on Monday, $360,000, that's gone. I don't know what the Sixers have been dinging him every single day, but that's gone. That's why the Sixers did a pretty shrewd thing when they put that money into escrow. I mean, I kind of described it in the column that it was basically a piggy bank that they could dig into whenever they wanted to, and up until about $8.25 million. And that's what they're going to do over the next month or so. If Ben Simmons sits out till mid-November, he'll lose $7.5 million out of that money. So I think the question that comes up, I know the question that comes up amongst people around the league is just how resolved is Ben Simmons to lose that kind of money? You can say, well, he made $57 million in his career on court. He's made more off the court. Doesn't matter. That's millions of dollars that is gone. And I think people are wondering just how long Simmons will be okay with that.
I still don't understand this. Ben Simmons plays poorly. He's mad that people expect him to play great since he's one of the top-end players. We keep hearing he's an all-star and he's a defensive player of the year, all of these great things, and then he gets sensitive and he wants to be traded. So what am I missing here with Ben? Are there bad people here on the other side with Ben? And I know Joel Embiid and Doc Rivers said what they said, but all right, maybe they were being honest, tough thing to hear. But, why doesn't Ben Simmons put on his big boy pants and say, you know what, I'm going to show you guys. I'm going to earn your trust again, instead of saying, I want out, trade me.
Well, Simmons' position is that the Sixers don't want him back because they want to continue building on the Ben Simmons, Joel Embiid, Tobias Harris group. They want him back to see him play well over a couple of months, get his trade value back up, and then deal him away. Ben Simmons just isn't down with that. I mean, all that being said, he's still getting paid. This is your job. You signed this contract. You didn't have to sign a long-term deal with Philadelphia a couple of years ago. You chose to. And because of that, you have to show up regardless of what the 76ers ultimately want to do with you. And I agree with you that, this is not like Philadelphia committed some kind of cardinal sin against him. Doc Rivers said something he most certainly regrets right now. Joel Embiid just says anything, and some of the stuff that comes out of his mouth is definitely critical of Ben Simmons. But who cares? I mean, if that's the worst thing the 76ers have done to you, lots of other players have experienced a lot worse, including Joel Embiid early during the process. So, I mean, Simmons doesn't want to come back because he thinks that if he plays well by mid-December or February at the latest, he's gone. But that's the price of signing that contract and being paid like a max player.
All right, your yearly Laker prediction, title, disaster,
No. This gets
something
clipped.
in between. What?
This gets clipped, and I wind up. This is it's like the low-hanging fruit to pick against the Lakers this year because I don't know how it works, and a lot of people, most of the people I talk to around the league, don't really know how it works. I mean, the Lakers, assuming Anthony Davis buys into playing center, they could be really good. I mean, Davis at the 5, LeBron at the 4, 2 shooters around Westbrook. I can see how that works. I can also see how Westbrook's presence makes them an elite regular season team because Westbrook has proven he can win regular season games basically on his own. So you can rest LeBron, rest AD. If injuries come up, you've got a player that can win games. But when you get into the playoffs, Westbrook is a career 30% three-point shooter. Like, he's at 31% last season. You can't really get around that. And he's been at his best when he has the ball in his hands. In the playoffs, you want the ball in LeBron James's hands. You want the ball at times in Anthony Davis's hands. You don't want the ball in Russell Westbrook's hands, because that, not since the days of Oklahoma City, has that proven to be an effective strategy in the postseason. So there are lots of reasons to bet against the Lakers this year.
Okay. So that's the quote we're going to pull.
I don't know. No, Lakers in the finals. I'm going with that. Lakers in the finals. If we're wrong, everybody else is wrong too. Like, I've eaten that Lakers going to miss the playoffs quote video for like 3 years now? Like, every time it comes up, it'll come up. So I'm going to clip it today. Like, why would you ask Chris Mannix about the Lakers? Here's what he said. And, like, that comes up every single year when the discussion turns to the Lakers.
Here's one of our favorites from Chris Mannix.
I think, first of all, Spain is stacked. I mean, they're a team with,
Yeah.
Hey, shout out Pau Gasol on a great career. Hall of Fame is next, based largely on your career with the Spanish national team.
All right, here's one more.
Blazers, Sixers in the finals.
Okay. That's unedited.
I reject the idea that we just randomly pull quotes from Mannix and then replay them endlessly. Great offense to that.
Yes, McLovin.
Was that from 1977 or what year was that?
Yeah, when Bill Walton was there. They faced Dr. J. That's a great call. Great call,
Wasn't there like a preamble to that Blazers Sixers?
No, we
quote?
cut that
Didn't
out.
you like ask me for like a bold prediction of some kind?
Yeah, maybe not. Who knows?
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. Yeah. Thanks. Yeah.
Thank you, Chris.
You got it, Dan.
That's the great Chris Mannix, Sports Illustrated NBA senior writer.